The single most popular question I get about mosquitoes is, why are some people more attractive to mosquitoes than others? And this, like many questions in science, has a lot of different layers to it. The fact of the matter is, good science shows that some people are more attractive than others, and there may be a lot of reasons for that. One reason has to do with what attracts mosquitoes in the first place. The major attractant for mosquitoes from long distances is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what every animal breathes out, and because of that, it's a good general attractant for mosquitoes. By the way, it also attracts all kinds of other biting flies as well. But for mosquitoes, that's the #1 attractant, particularly from far away, and that kind of brings them in. Now, some people probably produce more CO2 than others. For example, there have been studies that show pregnant women are more attractive to mosquitoes than other people, non-pregnant women, men, etc. We think this is because their metabolism is elevated, they're growing a baby in there, and that means that they're producing more CO2. So that alone makes them more attractive. There have been other studies that have, for example, shown that drinking alcohol makes you more attractive to mosquitoes immediately, like as you're drinking alcohol. That may also be because of changes in the amount of CO2 you produce. As mosquitoes get closer, they may be using other cues to determine whether they want to feed on that animal or not. These can be a variety of chemical cues, things that may come off the breath, along with CO2, or off of the skin. And these vary widely between people. They're dictated in large part by the kind of microorganisms you have living on your skin, and we think this plays a big role. However, we don't know exactly what compounds are attractive to which mosquitoes, with a few exceptions. There is a pioneering work about a decade ago, or a little less than a decade ago, showing that there was one molecule that is specific to humans, called sulcotone, that is very attractive to the yellow fever mosquito. We use that as kind of an example to say that different species are probably attractive to different specific compounds coming off of people, and the variation between people may be dictated by that. We've also seen associations with blood type, but the most attractive blood type appears to be O, and blood type O is the most common blood type, so probably most of us are at least somewhat attractive. Never met anybody completely unattractive to mosquitoes. Mosquitoes also seem to prefer different parts of the body. That is also likely determined by the chemical cues associated with those parts of the body. So for example, for some mosquitoes, the feet are particularly attractive, and probably the smells coming off of the feet. So much so that for certain mosquitoes, people use a kind of cheese called Limburger cheese as an attractant because it smells like dirty feet, actually. Once mosquitoes get close to a person, they're also going to cue in on visual cues. So it's not just chemical at that point. They're going to look for contrasting colors, contrasting shades. So light and dark next to each other is, we think, quite attractive to mosquitoes to find a place to land. As mosquitoes get close to you, they're also going to cue in on the heat, on the radiation in the infrared spectrum, if you will, that we don't see, but we could see as heat. If you use an infrared camera, you can see that. And they're going to cue in on that because that tells them, where the actual skin is as opposed to clothing, and where they can actually feed. That's a close range cue. Now, once a mosquito lands, they still haven't decided to bite yet. And they're going to crawl around the skin, or if they're on fabric, they're probably going to try to find the skin. And they're going to be crawling around and probing with their proboscis. All mosquitoes have this nice long mouth that looks like a needle. And that part's not even the part that goes in you. It's even smaller parts inside that part that goes in you. But they're going to be crawling around, and they're actually tasting as they're crawling. They can taste with their feet as well as that proboscis as it's down on the skin. And they're looking for a nice place to feed. They'll probably be taking in some chemical information. So instead of smell, like they did with CO2, they're now essentially tasting and looking for a nice part that tastes good, tastes like skin, right? And then the probing is they're looking for capillaries close to the skin surface, right? Then they're gonna drill down, and it is like a drill. It's actually like a reciprocating saw, not like a circular drill but a reciprocating saw, and they're gonna drill down under the skin, and with their mouth parts under the skin, it's actually quite flexible. They're gonna be looking for a capillary to feed into, and then they're gonna penetrate that capillary and suck up the blood. Another element of whether one person is attractive to mosquitoes or not may not be whether they are more likely to get bit by a mosquito, but how they react to the mosquito. When a mosquito feeds on you, it's actually injecting a lot of its saliva under your skin. And it does this because it helps the blood flow. There are anticoagulants in mosquito saliva. It actually helps you not react because there's anesthetics in mosquito saliva so that you don't feel it as much. And there are also what are called vasodilators in mosquito saliva. And what those do is they actually tell your body to send more blood to that site. Of course, that benefits the mosquito. But all of those things in the mosquito saliva gives your body an opportunity to react to it. And your body mounts a generalized immune response to a mosquito bite. We call it a flare and wheal. You get that little raised bump. Sometimes it's reddish, right? Now for me, I don't react that badly to mosquitoes. On the other hand, some people react really badly. They have a larger immune reaction, very itchy. If they scratch it, then they open up a scab, right? Or open up a wound there. And then they're really gonna notice. So in the question of why is one person more attractive to the others, they may indeed be more attractive to mosquitoes than their friend or their wife or husband or whatever, or they may react to mosquitoes more than the other person. So when they wake up the next day, they're covered in mosquito bites. There has been some investigation into the genetic components of attractiveness. And even though there's no definitive answer, we have at NC State studied one particular gene in humans called ABC11. It's also called the earwax gene because people with one type of this gene, variant of this gene, have dry earwax. Other people have wet earwax. But we see a correlation between self-reported mosquito attractiveness and this gene. People with the dry wax variant of this gene self-report that they're more attractive to mosquitoes than the wet wax variant of this gene. We don't know why that is, but we think it does have something to do with their microbiome. There is evidence that this one gene has big effects on people's microbiome, that is to say, on the bacteria, the diversity of bacteria, the types of bacteria that live on their skin.